Code 1 in The Way of the Warrior is the warrior fights only for peace. It's this chapter that really has the foundational line for the entire book. It's the first line of the entire book. The warrior is not ready for battle until they have come to know peace. This, to me, is really significant in that a lot of times people can take on kind of a warrior's mindset, but really what they really are is just a person out of control. They're a person who's driven with anger, with rage, with violence. And this is not at all the intention of the book. Actually, we're at war with that you can only fight for in the outside world what you're fighting for in your inner world. A huge part of the content in which this material came out of is the context of where I live. I mean, I live in a city where there's just so much stress, so much anxiety there. It's fast paced, it's intense, and even when you're just driving down the street in Hollywood, people are beeping at each other and cutting each other off. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people start yelling and screaming at each other as they're driving down the street. People roll down their windows just to begin to have aggressive conversations with each other. I watch people walking down the street begin to have conflicts with each other. It's just amazing how oftentimes we're just one choice away from an act of violence. And I've heard so many people say over the years, you made me so angry, or you made me mad. And the reality is that no one can make you angry. No one can make you mad. No one can make you violent. You're simply becoming what's inside of you. No one made you angry. People poked inside of your soul. There was anger there, and the anger came out. No one made you lose your temper. You had already a temper that was lost and out of control. Someone poked into your soul, and it came out. And what we need to realize is that real life pulls out of you what's in you. And that can also be an incredibly positive thing. I mean, it can sound like a terrifying thing, but it can be an incredibly encouraging thing. You just need to make sure you have the right stuff in you. And so if you have peace inside of you, when life comes at you hard, when someone cuts into your soul, peace is going to come out. If you have anger inside of you, when life comes at you, anger is going to come out. If you have hope inside of you, when life comes at you hard and everything flips upside down, hope is actually going to pour out of your soul. If you have despair within you, when life comes at you hard and you're overwhelmed and you're disappointed with life, despair is going to come out of you. So the real question in chapter 1 is, what's inside of you? Are you being honest about the material of your soul? And are you going to the hard work of replacing what you don't want inside of you with what you do want inside of you? Because, by the way, what's inside of you is who you are. And so if you're going to be a person of peace, you have to have peace. If you're going to be a person who brings hope in the world, you have to have hope. If you're going to be a person who brings love to the world, you have to be filled with love. And this is the inner battle, and it's not that easy. I wish we could just over-spiritualize this whole thing and say the moment you believe in God or the moment you give your life to Jesus, instantly all the material inside of you changes. But everyone who's ever been honest about their own spiritual journey knows this isn't reality. It's as if there's always a war raging within us. There is a war between hope and despair inside of us. There's a war between love and hate inside of us. There's a war between forgiveness and bitterness inside of us. And by the way, there's a war between light and darkness inside of us. And what we need to do is we need to go to war with the war that's raging inside of us. You have to decide who you're going to become. You have to decide what battle is worth fighting. And so you don't want to allow your inner world the room to become who you do not want to be. There's been so many times in my own life when I felt like, what just happened? You ever said, I don't know what got into me? Well, that's the wrong question. See, whenever we say, I don't know what got into me, what we're actually saying is, I don't know how that got out of me. And I'm telling you, whatever's inside of you is going to find a way out. I've been married for 35 years, and one of the powerful things about marriage is that you get to live your life fully and intimately in proximity with another human being who eventually knows you for who you are. They eventually figure out what's really going on inside of you, and all of your processes and techniques to hide the real you eventually begin to disappear. I think this is why so oftentimes after a year or 2 or 3 in marriage, even sometimes after just a few months, you end up having so much conflict, you end up having so much turmoil, because we work so hard to be our best selves so that someone will love us. And then we're married and we sort of surrender that best self. We say, okay, now you got to take me the way I am. And that other person's asking, who are you? Who did I marry? And you're going, oh, this is me, but it's not the me that I let you see. I think the best strategy is to decide to become your best self, to fight the battle within you. And this is where Jesus is so essential to that journey, because there are aspects to this battle that simply cannot be won alone. The journey to who you were created to become can only be fought when God is fighting for you. Now, by the way, God's always on your side and he's always fighting for you, but sometimes we're fighting against God, and we're actually fighting against God's best intention for our lives. For instance, have you ever found yourself in a circumstance and you think to yourself, why would God let this happen to me? Or why am I back here again? Or why isn't God making this better? Has it ever occurred to you that if God is keeping you in a circumstance you don't want to be, it's because God's using that as a pressure cooker to make you who he longs for you to become? So oftentimes we want God to change the circumstances, but if he changes the circumstance without changing us, nothing has actually gotten better. Don't ask God to change your circumstances before he changes you, because there's something that needs to be changed inside of us before there are things that are changed around us. Maybe we should actually ask for the opposite. We should ask for the battles, for the challenges, for the obstacles, for the difficulties in life that forge us into the best person we can become, that forge in us the kinds of virtues and characteristics, yes, and even attitudes that we should long to have. We should want to have the kind of life where we have enduring patience, where we actually have resilience, where we have determination, where we develop perseverance. We should want the kind of characteristics that allow us to overcome failure, that allow us to overcome disappointment. And one of the things I've seen so much in our culture is this incredible social experiment. Sometimes I think we believe that if we could make life easier for people, they will have the opportunity to get stronger. But the opposite is actually true. If your life has been too easy for you, you actually have not become strong enough for the life ahead of you. It's the difficulties in life, it's the challenges in life, it's the failures in life, it's the disappointments in life that actually build the deep internal muscles that your character needs to move forward with whatever your dreams or aspirations or your destiny may be. So we begin here with peace, with inner peace. It's central to Jesus' intention for us. I do think it's interesting that around that season we call Christmas, one of the central declarations is peace on earth and goodwill to all men. One of God's central intentions for humanity is to bring peace on earth. If we go back to when Jesus walked among us, one of the things he promised his disciples was that he was here to bring peace. That he said, I've come to bring you peace, but not the kind of peace that the world knows, not the kind of peace that the world has brought you. He said, I've come to bring you my peace, which seems almost in conflict when Jesus says, do you think I've come to bring peace? No, I've come to bring a sword. So it's almost like in one breath, Jesus is saying, I've come to bring peace. In another breath, he says, no, I have not come to bring peace, I've come to bring war. Well, is it possible that we actually need to translate Jesus carefully? Because what Jesus came to tell us is he came to win the war that's raging within us. So whenever they wanted Jesus to fight a war against Rome, Jesus was telling them, I didn't come to engage in that kind of battle. I didn't come for that kind of war. But the moment they didn't want Jesus to mess with their inner world, he said, no, I actually came to wage a war against your soul. I've come to bring peace. And they wanted Jesus to bring political peace. They wanted Jesus to give them national peace. But they really did not want Jesus to mess with the condition of their soul. But if anyone has ever understood that world peace is intimately connected to inner peace, it was Jesus. Jesus did not give up on world peace. His strategy was simply different than ours. He came to bring inner peace, and through inner peace, he brings world peace, one life at a time. One of my favorite scriptures is where the prophet proclaims to us that God will give perfect peace to those whose minds are stayed on him because they trust in him. From the beginning of time, from the first conflict between Abel and Cain, in that moment when Adam and Eve had their relationship broken between them, we've been struggling for peace. We have lived in conflict. We've lived with jealousy and bitterness and envy. We have lived with anger and unforgiveness and violence. And God knows more than all of us how desperately we need inner peace. And he gives us such a simple directive. He says, I'm going to give perfect peace. Wow. Can you imagine having perfect peace? I'm going to give perfect peace to that individual whose mind is stayed on me, that person whose mind is focused on me because they trust in me. There's a direct relationship between inner peace and placing our trust in God. Because if you look at it in a very practical sense, we lose our peace when we try to control what is out of our control. You just stop and think about when you begin to experience fear and anxiety and depression, you'll begin to realize that your peace is intimately connected to the amount of control you need in your life. And if you're trying to control your life, you lack peace completely. But if you put your life in the hands of God, if you trust Jesus with your life, you actually have said to God, God, everything that I have no control over, I know is in your control, and I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you with everything that's outside of my power. I'm going to trust you with everything that's outside of my control. God wants you to take control over the things he has placed under your responsibility, and he wants you to trust him with everything that's outside of your responsibility. When you look at our own internal world, we struggle with depression when we look backwards on our life and we realize that our life has not been everything we longed for it to be, and we can't change that. We are overwhelmed with regret. We struggle with anxiety when we look forward and we realize that our future may not be everything we hope it will be. And when we feel that our past is out of our control and our future is out of our control, then it makes our present an experience of chaos because everything is out of our control. That's one of the reasons it's so important to live in this moment fully. When you live in this moment fully, when you say, God, I can't change my past, so I'm going to leave my past in my past. I do not have control over the mysterious and uncertain of the future, so I'm going to have faith that you are going to step into that space on my behalf. What I do have control over are the choices I make in this moment. I'm going to trust you with my life, and I'm going to make the choices that I know reflect the person you created me to become. And when you do that, there's an incredible peace that settles into your soul. And by the way, the very Jesus who spoke to the waves and the wind and said, peace be still, can bring peace to your weary soul. So let him speak peace into your life. And as you hear his voice, trust him, follow him, and let the Prince of Peace bring peace to you. Chapter 1, the warrior fights only for peace. This is the battle that matters. This is the war that rages within us. This is the war that must be won. The war to end all wars is the war within us all.